Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Agata Lulkowska, and I have a massive pleasure to be here this afternoon, co-presenting Film on Demand webinar with our special guest, Professor Piotr Siuda from Faculty of Social Communication and Media in Poland. How are you, Piotr?
Hi, hello, thanks. I'm fine, and thanks for an invitation. I hope you are fine and healthy, and you have a great webinar. And I'm from Kazimierz Wielki University. It's in Bydgoszcz, Poland, and the faculty you've mentioned. So I hope it will be a great meeting.
It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. So I just have to apologize about one thing. We are having a tiny technical problems with our PowerPoint, and that's why you are seeing all our slides on the left-hand side, so we cannot play it in a full presentation, but I hope you can forgive us this tiny difficulty here. So what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna wait for everyone else to connect. We are still waiting for a couple of more people. So let's just wait about a minute or so. And the way we're gonna run this webinar today, you hopefully see table of content in front of you on our PowerPoint. So we have about 7-8 topics to discuss, and we are not going to be giving you a lecture. We're just going to have a nice, hopefully interesting, and hopefully positive, uplifting chat about film on demand, the future of cinema, and all the interesting things happening with the industry right now. Would you like to add something, Piotr?
I guess not. It's, you have mentioned all the topics we'll discuss, so I think we may start.
Just looking at the attendees. Oh yeah, okay, wonderful. So let's just crack on. So the first thing, I think everyone will agree with the films are absolutely amazing when it comes to healthy form of escapism. I don't believe there's anyone who absolutely hates cinema. Of course, there's lots of taste when it comes to the types of films and content, but would you agree with me that watching films can be a really, really good form of, a way to provide a temporary relief from daily problems and worries?
No, definitely, yeah, I would agree. Movies are therapeutic, and I think it is worth noting that today audiences are different than they used to be. So they are no longer passive as they used to be. They do not longer consume passively. And the point is that everyone has free tools today, for example, on the internet to co-create a certain product, a media product, like a cinema or movie. And as for the films, well, I think that today, in the age of pandemics, we can, for example, share our insights on the web about certain titles. So we can relate those titles, those movies to our experiences, also to our experiences of pandemics. So I can see this clearly in my country, where, for example, on the internet there is a huge revival of interest in old apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic movies, like the ones that show the world which is devastated by, for example, diseases, right? So I think it's clear that we, in the time of crisis, we are looking a way to somehow help ourselves, and then this kind of sharing the meanings we give to films can be therapeutic. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And again, I wish we had another hour to talk about this topic. So I'm sure we could have an interesting conversation about recommendations of films, which can be very helpful and uplifting in the times of crisis, really. So I guess the next topic we should really discuss at the moment is really this concept of video or on demand. But the way I like to see the topic is really in the wider context of the history of reception practices and the way it has evolved from TV, scheduled broadcasting, obviously scheduled cinemas, things like video cassettes, which I see as something which was what happened before, obviously VOD, but it's almost like a precursor of the trend. Video clubs, and of course today video streaming platforms on multiple personal platforms. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's like we have on the slide. It's really about the convenience. It's every next technical improvement is about convenience, and evolution is about convenience. And today, VOD is a clear example. So the time-shifting model of watching a TV or a cinema or movies is becoming more and more popular. So we watch TV and also films when we feel like it. And of course, the VOD market is growing, and I think that even without the help of pandemic. So pandemic is a clear example of how this market is growing. And I think that there are several reasons besides convenience, because the convenience and time shifting is a clear reason. It's really clear to understand why this is happening. But I think that we must pay attention that the VOD platform are there is a huge amount of content there, and everyone can find something for themselves. And this model of blockbusters or great mega hits, which everyone has to watch, it does not count anymore as it used to. Because yeah,
I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
No, because of course I think that this huge amount of content is really important nowadays. We want to watch what we like, but of course it also relates to these excellent recommendation systems, and especially Netflix has a legendary recommendation system. And of course, this allows to reach selected niches of audiences. So, yeah, I think that,
if I can just jump in, because I think you're touching on something extremely important. And I remember in my previous research, I was looking very much at the question of profiles of different film festivals. And I really think we can relate that to the question of VOD. And if you look at the bottom of our screen at the moment, where we have icons of 4 just examples of different VOD platforms, I think we can really clearly see exactly the same idea of profiles of different platforms which will appeal to different audiences. And you've mentioned that a moment ago. And I think this is a very helpful idea for people to find their way in this mass of content which is out there. And of course, we have things like keywords, which is relating to content on YouTube, and even internet as a whole, really, not necessarily as a VOD system only. But I think if we look at if we compare platforms such as Netflix, which you've mentioned, and perhaps Movie or even Curzon, which are really focused on a completely different kind of cinema, it's also very interesting to see how these 2 different platforms or other different platforms, how what kind of strategies they use to attract different people. What would you think?
well, yeah, definitely. You have different targets, right? You want to attract different kind of audiences. You have to have a different strategy, and the pandemics also show this really clearly. Because, for example, I am surprised what is happening in Poland on the VOD market, because we didn't have any those artistic or cinema platforms. We only had Netflix, HBO, and those great companies. But nowadays, when the pandemic strikes, it's clear that the streaming platforms are on the rise. And we have, for example, this different experiments like Moje.pl, which is a new streaming platform, and it is dedicated solely to the fans of artistic independent cinema. It's really interesting, because it seemed before the pandemic that it will never happen. But now, they see that it can be a really good commodity, right? So they associate nearly 50 cinemas, and the goal is, of course, to serve after the pandemic, also to function after the pandemic. When the cinemas return, they want to continue, and they want to promote artistic cinema and also have meetings with artists, workshops, film festivals, what you mentioned, right? So there are many film festivals in Poland which are, of course, postponed, but some of them are on the web right now. And this is we'll talk about it.
I think we're gonna get to festivals in a moment. So just to stay on this slide for 1 more minute, I think what you say is extremely interesting. How different countries are trying to catch up with the question of independent cinema, which obviously is not so by definition mainstream as the thing. But I think it's so important that this kind of things are happening. And I think what's also important, and you've mentioned that at the beginning, that of course these platforms are not new. And there definitely hasn't happened just for sake of the pandemic, but they're definitely evolving. And we're going to talk about festivals and the way the industry changes in the 2 following slides. But I just wanted to say one last thing here. So, places like Curzon, which is this really nice chain of kind of art-related cinemas, what they try to do by creating Curzon Home Cinema Initiative, they really have this very interesting Q&As, live Q&As, trying to bridge this live experience of going to a cinema and participating in live Q&As with artists, directors, actors, but at the same time from the comfort of your home. And I think this is what's really interesting. So it's nothing new, as we said, but it definitely evolves and changes. And I'm sure you would agree with me that these changes will definitely shape the future of the industry.
Yeah, of course, definitely, and the pandemics only will cause that it will be a faster evolution. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess speaking about changes, and you've mentioned some of the things already. So of course, probably everyone's aware at the moment that has been quite a shift since the lockdown. So of course, different countries went into lockdown in different times. In case of the UK, we're talking about March 23rd. So the productions stopped, all the cinema have closed. And of course, all the professionals were really fearing for their future and future of the industry. And you've mentioned about some festivals in Poland. I know Krakow Film Festival is going online. I'm actually waiting to buy my tickets.
Yeah.
But there's another very interesting things which we'll mention in a second, where festivals and also museums, opera houses, they enable people to stream their content, the archive content online. And as you said, some of the films are being premiered on small screen, but that also affects things like awards. So the question of what kind of films can be considered for Oscars has also changed, because traditionally all these films had to have a premiere in theaters, and right now they're obviously changing that, allowing films which premiere on a small screen to be part of it.
Yeah, so a lot of changes, as you mentioned. The same in Poland. You mentioned some festival in Krakow. I know some other festival like Spring of Films Festival or Amondo Festival. There are lots of festivals which are online right now. But of course, despite this transfer and despite the fact that the industry tries to cope with the current situation, well, there is a lot of fear in Poland that the industry will somehow will not get over it, so that the film industry is getting poorer, because of course the reasons are obvious, and lots of people in this industry are losing their jobs. This is another topic that you have on your slides, especially those that are freelancers and work on contracts, right? So all these people will be left with nothing, or they will have a significantly reduced income. So I think that despite the fact that the industry tries to cope, there is still a lot of fear. And this is an interesting situation in Poland, when a lot of films, a lot of productions are financed by the state, by this State Film Institute. And this institute was established, I think, around 2005. And well, it is crucial when it comes to financing film production in Poland. And in the face of the crisis, the industry is turning to the institute for help, but at the same time, the institute is in a crisis. So, because of course the institute budget comes from cinemas, from digital platforms, from distributors, and so on. And this is a really bad situation for Polish industry. So we don't know what the future will hold, but of course. Everyone suspects that somehow we will manage, because in Poland we have a lockdown. Of course, it lasts for the lockdown was established in March, but we are slowly going back to normality. I think that in June it will be all normal, I hope. So of course it depends how long the lockdown will last.
Yeah. So we'll talk in a second about different ideas which we think might happen, help and get out of this situation. One of the interesting things I've heard was the idea of all the film crews going in isolation together for 2 weeks of time before shooting, then obviously just being within their own group while doing the production process, and then going back into quarantine for another 2 weeks afterwards before they can go back home and see their loved ones. So, that's just yet another idea. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm positive that the industry will bounce back. And one of the reasons I strongly believe in that, because there's such a strong need for, for films, for us as audiences. We really love watching movies. And of course, this is a very difficult situation. I'm sure there's going to be very difficult way to go back, but I'm sure this is going to bounce back. So one of the things which are happening here in the UK is a multiple fund. So on the screen you see a little poster, a little screenshot from BFI. So there was a COVID-19 film and TV emergency relief fund, and again, in terms of other things in which the industry can cope with this difficult situation. As I said, we're gonna go to that in one of the future slides. I just wanted to mention here, because we indicated that the another festival initiative, which is I find very interesting. So we are a global film festival, which is basically like a tour, a virtual tour of all the big film festivals and showcasing selection of films. I think this is such a beautiful way of finding a way for audiences to really keep connected to the cinema during the time when going to festivals. It's obviously much more difficult, and as we said before, some festivals are in the same situation, like films they're still hoping to run, especially the ones planned for the end of the year, but I'm hoping things will change. So why don't we start from the nice one? What do you think about drive-in theater idea?
We have a renaissance in Poland of this kind of theaters, and we have them in all bigger cities. But I think that in Poland the situation is like I said before, we are getting into normality quite quickly. So I think that the future will tell if it will be a lasting trend. So I think that while one minus of this kind of car cinemas is that they work on after dark. They work after dark. So this means that the screenings can only you can only go to there during the evening, right? So I think that we are really close to have the restrictions lifted. So it's not so much a renaissance of this kind of places, but maybe a way of waiting for the real cinemas to open.
The way I see it as well, again, I'm giving the example of a festival which is going to happen here in the UK from July to September. I see it as a way of bringing some element of performance to it as well, because the way they're going to run this, I'll call it festival, is by bringing additional elements to it, such as stand-up comedy, silent car disco, food which can be ordered by apps and delivered to each car. So of course it's not just the cinema, and of course in terms of the time of the day, and especially of course in summer it's getting dark really late at the moment, but hopefully by adding this kind of, making this into this kind of almost like a family festival where you can just do other things and enjoy the day out.
It's a way of course to bring these consumers, right? To attract consumers to go to this kind of cinemas. Yeah, it's
Definitely.
one of
Definitely. All right. So this is our last and perhaps most exciting slide, where we actually just trying to think. We don't know the answers. We don't know what's going to happen. No one knows. But I think this is a very interesting moment to really bring back the old ideas and old technologies which already exist, and see what might happen in the future. How do you see what's going to happen after the lockdown? How do you see it, Piotr?
Well, it's of course as we mentioned, probably the VOD will be there for it will play a more important role, and I don't know. One of the causes of one of the I think things that we may experience is of course the strengthening of VODs, and already many people and producers are getting used to the situation when the films are premiere on VODs. Right, we have this situation in Poland, and it relates to the highly acclaimed and really expected movie. So of course, this has its pluses, but also it has its minuses. Because I think that I would warn Polish producers to against this kind of unreflected love towards streaming platforms, because I am afraid that in the long term, a model, this kind of model in which instead of many local cinema distributors, there are only like 2 or 3 global VOD platforms, is of course not really good model, because this model will not be so beneficial for producers in context of revenues and so on. But of course, American stock market analysts recommends to buy Netflix shares, right? And they are on the rise, those big streaming platforms. And it's really interesting that the Polish government has noticed this, because we have the government introduced this the so-called Netflix tax, and it is about 1.5% of the income of the streaming platforms must be given back in the way of tax. And it is intended to fight coronavirus, COVID, and it is intended to help Polish movie industry to overcome the crisis, right? So I think, of course, there are many questions, and the situation is really dynamic, and it really depends on how long the COVID will stay, how long the lockdown will hold.
Yeah, and I think we had it in a previous slide. We didn't actually talk about it much, but again, this is not a new thing, that VOD platforms or VOD companies are actually producing their own content, original content, and again, that's nothing new, and that really changes this whole process of who is producing the content, where the money goes, where the money comes back. And I guess we also should mention the fact how TV series are, I don't want to say replacing popularity of movies, because that's not necessarily the case, but definitely gaining popularity. And what comes with that, this fascinating phenomenon of binge watching, when I'm sure you've engaged, and myself, and hopefully most of the people who are listening to this podcast. I don't know if hopefully is the right word, but I'm sure everyone knows what we're talking about. So this is also very, very interesting, and I think it really is, it opens this very interesting question of the revenue, as you mentioned. But I guess what we should also really think, so when I talk to my friends who work in industry, they work in different roles. So I know that for people who work in post-production, especially VFX, animation, weirdly, they don't seem to have less jobs, they seem to have more jobs. And that's why what we think, of course, we don't know, that we might see heavier reliance on VFX, animations, but maybe even other technologies which haven't been used that much in cinema. So who knows, maybe deepfake technology will help people in the future, with filmmaking, obviously reducing the necessity to travel and have all the actors on set. What I find very, very interesting, again, this is nothing new, but it's gaining significance, is the question of virtual productions, where you're basically able to pre-design the whole set and change it almost live during your shoot without necessarily having to be on set. And again, if you think about benefits it can bring in times where social isolation is still a requirement, I think it's a really fascinating idea. So who knows, we don't know the answers, but I somehow think that technologies, even things like interactive films on other novelties, which can be done from archive materials. There's lots of interesting movies premiered and showcased on platforms like Movie. There was recently I've watched romantic comedy, which is basically made. A romantic comedy is a title, it's not a genre I'm talking about, where the whole film was made from archives with a voiceover commentary. So there's lots of ways of making movies which don't necessarily require a massive group of people traveling from one place to another. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting, and hopefully everything is going to be back to normal. Nevertheless, we should see some interesting improvements, changes, and technological innovations.
Yeah, but I think that what we have here now is the evidence that how strong the connection between the movie industry and the game industry are becoming. Like the movies are nowadays more like games, I think, and they created like games. And of course, this is growing in the times of pandemic, but I think it will stay for a bit longer. And of course, the expectations are that everything will get back to normal. But I don't know if it will, because I don't know if you've heard that in China, where the pandemic is practically over, people are still afraid to go to the cinemas. So
Yeah.
There is kind of phobia or just a fear that they will just experience COVID again. And so we can, I think that there is a huge role of politicians or media to help us overcome this kind of fear when the pandemic will be over. So for sure, it's an interesting time, and we'll see what the future holds.
Definitely. I guess we don't have more time to talk about other things. We're gonna take questions from the audience in a second. I just wanted to close this webinar with this kind of maybe nostalgic hope that we will still be able to come back to cinema. I'm from the generation which basically grew up in a cinema. I think I spent most of my childhood and teenage years and early 20s living in a cinema. I was there from morning to evening, and I really miss this experience of sitting in a dark room and reacting to the cinema with reacting to the movie with other strangers who laugh or scream depending on what kind of movie you watch in the darkness. I find it really exciting, and I really miss it. So as much as I really appreciate the comfort of watching movies from the on my computer screen, and I really think it's more effective in many ways because you can watch more and you don't have to travel and you don't have to worry about so many other things. But I really think there's something magic when it comes to going to cinema. I hope you agree with me.
I agree, and I think that your expectations will just hold, because the society has announced the end of cinema more than once. Like, during the 2013 crisis in the US, and then when the television appeared, in the 1980s when the home video appeared, and now some are, of course, try to say that the cinema as we know it is just coming to an end. But I think that it will hold, and we can still go there and create cinema as a meeting place, a destination to go with friends, or to go to a date. I think that it will last. It has many social functions to us. Yeah.
Definitely. Wonderful. So I guess this is the time for questions. I don't know how much time we have for this. Okay. So the question is, are you aware about industry internal struggles, examples, cinemas who are really at risk versus film production companies who have the choice of going straight into streaming, minimizing the risk? What would you say, Piotr?
Well, can I see the question? Because I didn't see the question. Is there any chance I can see the question?
In chat, you should see it. So I'm going to read it once again.
Yeah.
Are you about industry internal struggles, examples, cinemas who are really at risk versus film production companies who have the choice of going straight into streaming, minimizing their risk? I mean, I can start answering this question. Definitely, there's, as we said, it's a very, very difficult time, and what's happening, we didn't have much time to talk about it, but many films are being postponed for, let's say, to give you an example, obviously the latest James Bond movie, which premiere has been pushed until November. Other films, many of them, especially the big ones, had to be placed on streaming services way before the original time. So this window between the original premiere for the lucky ones, which managed to go on the big screen before the isolation, it's really diminishing, because normally we will be thinking about weeks, months before that would happen, just to maximize that profit. And at the moment, it's obviously changing. And there's some films which are going straight into VOD platforms. So another example for this would be the latest film by Pablo Larraín, the Chilean director, Emma, which was premiered on movie on, I believe, 1st of May, and it was premiered on that very day, and then it was left there for the subscribers. So there's lots of strategies for this, and of course the problem is that for the films or festivals which are waiting until the end of the year, they're basically hoping that things are back to normal. But I guess the risk of this is that no one knows what's going to happen. We're all hoping for things to be back to normal very, very soon, but no one knows. It's really a very difficult question, and that's why I believe many distributors are taking the risk of just placing the films early on different VOD platforms, just to avoid losing all the potential income from it. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, something like we have in Poland many titles that go straight to streaming, but I won't pronounce it because probably it's too hard for you to all those Polish titles. We have many examples, but I think that this big industry, I mean, Hollywood, for example, is still waits for the lockdown to be lifted, because those huge titles like you mentioned, Bond, or there is this new title, that is new movie Tenet by Christopher Nolan, and I probably heard about it. This Tenet is probably this test. It's kind of a test for the industry. It will be kind of a test. Because it's one of the biggest, and also one of the biggest and the first things after the lockdown, probably, because it will be coming to the screen in mid-July, and this film is crucial for the film industry, because if it's delayed or fails commercially, it will be a sign that to postpone all other premieres. So we must treat these mega hits or blockbusters as a kind of tests. And failure or shift of Tenet will lead to the withdrawal of all screenings probably by the end in 2020. So we will see.
And then, sorry to interrupt again, and I think the next question we have, which I'll read in a second, could also provide the answer, because the next question is, might there be a comeback of drive-in cinema in the UK? I spent my teenage years in the US, so drive-in cinemas were great. And I do think that there's a huge possibility for this to happen. If you think about the secret cinema, which has this element of performance as part of the experience, I see drive-in cinema experience with all the elements we just mentioned before as part of it. And I would love to, I would absolutely love to be able to go to watch a movie in drive-in cinema even tonight. I really, I find it really adventurous. It's different. It's something new, and I know that people like this kind of things. It's, I guess, it's like with going to the cinema. It's not only about watching the movie, which you can do, as we said, on your mobile phone, but really being able to experience something different, something which is a communal experience, which is a shared experience with other people going to the drive-in cinema. So I'd love to say yes. I really hope there's going to be a comeback of drive-in cinema in the UK.
I can say about Polish market that a few years back, there was this experiment with car cinemas, drive-in cinemas, and it didn't really, wasn't successful, because people did not have this experience, and because of the quality or poor quality of the screenings. Like you are too far away from the screen, or you don't see well. So it has lots of problems, this kind of cinemas. There are lots of problems with it. But if you take into account this experience, right, that you are going with someone, for example, with a loved one, that could be an additional advantage.
Yeah. So I think we have some other questions. We have to give shorter answers because we're running out of time and there's lots of questions. That's why I'm reading here. So the next question is, nothing beats watching a film on the big screen, but can cinema recover after this mass change in viewing habits, or has the damage been done? I'm absolutely positive that it will survive. And again, I will be the first one to go back to cinema, and I'm sure there's lots of people who will do the same. It's really, there's nothing which compares to being in, big screen with amazing sound. And on the slide which you have in front of you right now, we've given some ideas of different strategies cinemas are working on, and one of them, of course, is a 4D cinema, which I am not very keen of. It's originated in Korea and basically means that all your senses are being bombarded with all sorts of things. So you have motion, rain, mist, bubble, strobe, you name it. And of course, this is one strategy for cinemas to try to attract people back to the screens. Again, I don't think this is going to be something which will last for longer, because obviously that means completely rebuilding all the venues and equipping the cinemas with all this technology. But I really think just the basic cinema with a good sound system and a screen and other people seeing next to you, I'm sure it's going to be back. Of course, it might be difficult, and there might be some changes in terms of how it's being made. I think what's important, maybe interesting, is the concept of subscriptions to cinemas. So again, places like View or Curzon, they have, or of course not now because we cannot go to a cinema, subscriptions. So this is a way to attract people. You pay your monthly fee, and then you can go to any View or Curzon and just watch whatever they have over there. I think it is really one way to go forward, but I'm positive. Would you agree with me, Piotr?
Since the answers must be shorter, I would say, yeah, definitely, I agree.
I'm sorry, I took over. I'm gonna let you answer the next question, so let's go and read it. Cinemas have been doubling with streaming of live events, such as plays, concerts, etc. Is diversifying content the way to keep cinema relevant?
Yeah, sure. I think it is because we have this even we have this experiments with sports on cinemas in cinemas. I don't know if you've heard, like watching, for example, soccer World Cup in cinema, and it was quite popular in Poland. So definitely, yeah. But I think the basis is the same. We want to go to this kind of screenings. Or see, for example, live sport in cinema, just to have this social experience, watching a match, for example, a game with friends, and enjoy this kind of experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. I used to, when I was down in London, I used to go to the Royal Opera House all the time, and I kind of miss it being up north right now. So definitely having the option to go to the cinema and watch it rather than streaming on my computer is definitely the way. So I would say yes. So the next question: do you think there could be some truth to the talk that one film will have to be shown on 80% of cinema screens to even turn a desired profit, owing to social distancing practice being proposed? Will this affect the multiplex model? Yeah, this is a really, really difficult one. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that the big companies, multiplexes, will have a much easier way to overcome the crisis. That's definitely true because I compare them to the smaller cinemas, the art house cinemas. And I'm strictly talking about Poland here because Poland is very specific when it comes to this, because we have many small cinemas and many art house cinemas, and they are not able to compete with multiplexes normally. And the COVID may only just that these multiplexes will win, like the small cinemas will just be closed. And of course, multiplexes have lots of rooms, and they are based on selling sodas, snacks, and so on. And of course, the way they are promoting big titles like mega hits. This is something really. This is something that makes them overcome the crisis much easier.
And I think the last thing to consider here is also the scale of the movies, of course, because of course there's going to be lots of. I have a feeling there will be a lot of smaller scale independent movies which take a bit less money to make, and obviously in that case, this revenue. The way to get the revenue back might be somehow different, and that in conjunction with what you just said about the types of cinema. So who knows? But I'm sure there will be some way for us to go back to cinemas and enjoy some amazing films out there. And meantime, we can enjoy all the online festivals, all the drive-in cinemas, and all the other amazing events happening there. So thank you, Piotr. It was absolutely wonderful to have you here. Thank you for accepting my invitation, and thank you for your expertise.
It was a pleasure.
And I want to thank you, the audience, for attending. Please do visit our website, Staffordshire University website for events is staffs.ac.uk/events. There's lots of other future events and webinars. This webinar, I should have mentioned, is part of Wednesday Wisdom series, which feature all sorts of different topics. It's not all about cinema. In fact, I think this is the only one about cinema, but they're equally fascinating. And please do join. And thank you so much for your attention. It was absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.